We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Good evening to the Winged Helmet community. Good evening to you, Dr. Jared Johnson. We are back tonight on a Tuesday. Yep. Schedule's a little bit different. Jared, what did you have going on Monday that we had to throw the schedule off?
Oh yeah, it's totally my fault. Kids, choir, dad stuff, sat there for an hour, pleasantly surprised. I was going into it like my daughters joined choir because they want to go to Cedar Point. They don't give a shit about singing. I'm not even sure they do sing. I see a lot of this.
Yeah.
And that's not, the words aren't even matching up and they want me to take pictures and it's all looks stupid, but great kids. But there were some girls, 6th, 7th, 8th grade girls that were out there singing solos. Amazing. Like a lot of talent. Okay. I was pretty impressed, but so we had to push it to Tuesday, but
we're here.
Yeah. And look at this, fans. Look at that. Got a new one.
Wow. The JJ McCarthy jersey.
Yeah.
I don't know if people who watch this podcast really pay attention too much, but you shift these around a little bit. It seems like every other day you're sending me a picture of a new jersey that I guess this is what you do in retirement now. You retire from the Army National Guard and now you just collect Michigan memorabilia. Hey, there's worse ways to spend your retirement.
I walked by a homeless guy earlier. I couldn't give him any money, but I had a jersey, but I felt bad, dude, but I had to look at it. I mean, whatever.
Carrying your McCarthy jersey, you're like, I don't got it.
I can't put it down.
Good to see you, Tyler. Good to see you, Seth. Good to see you, as always, CJ. And then TV Maize and Blue from the YouTube page hanging out here early, saying Dilly, right? Kenny Dillingham. By the way, for some odd reason, I keep getting Kenny Dillingham and Kyle Dillingham confused. And I keep wanting to say Kyle Dillingham. And then every time I'm like researching it, Kyle Dillingham is like apparently like a professional violinist. I don't know if that's what you call them. And I'm like, why the hell can't I find anything on Arizona State's head coach? It's because it's Kenny Dillingham. So I've made that mistake a number of times, but certainly
they hire the wrong guy.
They've been reaching out to the wrong guy, the search firm that Michigan is utilizing. But yeah, I mean, it certainly seems like, but before the coaching search really started and before all this came up, Kenny Dillingham was not anybody that was really on my list. I mean, I knew about him in the Big 12. Obviously, he had an incredible year last year, Big 12 Coach of the Year, had the Sun Devils in the college football playoff. And so, it was a pretty successful year for them last year, but he was never anybody that I really viewed as like somebody that I could ever picture at the University of Michigan. But as you look at the way that this coaching thing is playing out, some of the guys who are sort of really starting to separate themselves in terms of they might not be the guy, Kenny. There it is again. Kenny Dillingham is a guy who continues to hang around, and every time he gets asked about it, and the people there are asking him to close the door and give us something definitive, similar to what you heard from Kalen DeBoer the other day, who gave something a little more definitive with Alabama. Dillingham is leaving that door open. Now, there could be a number of reasons for that. Maybe he's trying to negotiate and get better deals for the guys out there at Arizona State, which isn't unheard of. But, Jared, when you look at Arizona State and what's possible out there, I get it. He has ties to the school. He's from the area. His family's there. His parents are there. I understand all of that. But I think in this NIL era, maybe you have more of an opportunity for some parity, and we're seeing a little bit of that in college football now. But, and this may just be arrogance on my part as a Michigan football fan, somebody around the program. But let's be real, like Arizona State is never going to be Michigan. You are never going to have the resources out there that you're going to have in Ann Arbor. And so there might be a lot out there for you. But Jared, if the Michigan Wolverines come calling and you're Kenny Dillingham, you got to be looking at that job as like, okay, this is Alabama-esque. This is Notre Dame-esque. Like, this is up there with those elite jobs. I just don't know how you say no to it.
No, I don't think you can. And the other part is, I mean, you got to look. You always look at like a 5-year plan or whatever, right? the other position, the other big name coaching jobs are locked up now, right? Like Penn State just got a new coach. LSU just got a new coach. I mean, Ole Miss is out there, but they're not on the level of Michigan. Ohio State's locked up for a while. Notre Dame's got Marcus Freeman, a young guy. Like these positions got young guys there, right? DeBoer's young in Alabama. I mean, really, he can play there for a while. CJ's always got jokes, but no, I don't know how you say no. What is he, 35? I think he's 35, which is pretty good for a violinist or whatever, but
Sure.
To be that accomplished. But
I
don't like I said in the comments, one of the fans already said it. With what's going to happen with you at Michigan, you can move your whole family. Like you'll be okay, buddy.
And hell, you could probably bake that into whatever contract. Like, look, I'll come there. I'll be the head coach, but I want my sister to move. I want my parents to move.
Hook some people up.
And that's what you can do these days. And this coaching search, I don't think we are getting near the end of it. I know that Michigan has hired a search firm that I think is going out, and that firm is having conversations with agents, and you're going back and forth and you're trying to garner interest. And I don't even know that Michigan, outside of having a conversation with Biff Poggi in the building because he's already there, I don't know that any of these interviews have already taken place. This is really the phase of this where you're trying to figure out who's interested, who are the legitimate candidates out there, so that you can really begin the interview process either later this week or into next week. There's some people out there saying that Michigan wants to have this wrapped up before Christmas. I certainly think that you want to have it wrapped up before the bowl game, particularly with the transfer portal window opening shortly after. I think you want to know who's going to be the head coach, and you want that guy to be in that seat for a little while, so that when the transfer portal comes around, you're retaining as many of these guys as you possibly can. So I think there's the Dillingham angle of this. There's also some reporting that came out. Jed Fish is another guy who's been mentioned in the coaching search here. It sounds like there's quite a bit more distance there, that he's sort of a guy that's fading away. I know that Jake Butt was pretty big on Jed Fish.
Yeah.
You see the connection there to Michigan. He was part of Harbaugh's staff here in Ann Arbor. He had some success out there at Arizona. He's kind of doing the same thing with Washington, signed a hell of a recruiting class with the Huskies this last go around, but it seems like he's fading away. I guess, Jared, when you look at, the statement from Kalen DeBoer saying, I plan to be here next year, or he didn't really say that. He was asked, and I guess after being forced into a corner, because he did what coaches do. He gave a very lengthy response. He was backed into a corner, and then he said, yes, the plan is to be here. We all know what that means. Like, plans change, but the plan for DeBoer is to be there. When you look at all of the names that are being mentioned in this coaching search, I guess, how do you feel about this? Is this sort of what you envisioned for Michigan? Is it at the level of what your expectation is? Are there some names that aren't in this search that you haven't heard that you think should be? What's your overall take on the search so far and the names that are being thrown around?
Yeah, I think, typical Michigan, kind of, you and I even got sucked into it a little bit. Like, we shot for the moon a little bit, but I think that a lot of what's going on is these coaches are going to be very cautious, right? Like, Kalen DeBoer is in the college football playoff. He can't really entertain this at all right now, because he's got his team looking right at him. What are you saying, coach? You got Alabama looking at him too. What are you saying? Like, they don't want to hear any of this nonsense that you're even thinking about going to another team. Urban Meyer was never really an option. It was a pipe dream. And then you've mentioned it on your social media posts. There's a lot of gray area around Michigan right now. And so you got a young guy like Dillingham out there in Arizona State, and he might be thinking, it's a great job, but what if something else comes down the pipe? What if there's more stuff that we don't even know yet, or he doesn't know yet? And he goes to Ann Arbor and these sanctions start coming out. And, unlike in the past, the kids can just bounce. They're like, hey, we're out of here. Now he's stuck in Ann Arbor in a tank situation, trying to rebuild when there's no way to rebuild. So I think you're going to see a lot of caution on the side of the coaches. And what I hope doesn't happen is that Michigan doesn't just panic and say, well, shoot, these guys aren't really interested. Let's go get a D3 guy for a D2 guy from Ferris State, or we got to fill the spot. Because I think one of the fans just mentioned it. You and I talked about, what's the worst thing about keeping Biff there for a year and just letting him stabilize the program, and then taking their time and getting that really good hire and cleaning up all these investigations. I don't think it's the worst thing. I mean, Biff's a great dude. We've been around him. We've seen him, met him. I think he's a calm presence that the program needs right now. He nailed that media interview. He absolutely nailed it. He didn't pull any punches, didn't make any excuses for Sharon, and said, hey, the kids are upset. They feel betrayed. Like, he told the truth. And I think, and he mentioned talking to parents already. Man, he's calming the whole program right now, and that's what they need.
Well, you heard Michigan parents come out and say, like, hey, we want Biff. We don't know how this is going to play out, but Biff has been, a steady voice, a steady person in this process. He needs to remain in the program. A couple of things here. So we'll talk about the Biff Poggi thing, because you're right, Jared. You and I were talking about that a little bit offline earlier today. I know that there's some pushback from fans who think that that's an awful, horrible idea. They're pointing to what he did at Charlotte and got fired because he couldn't win games out there. But I think it's a completely different circumstance here in Ann Arbor. First thing, before we get to that, though, I just want to address this comment here from, I think it's Michael. And I think I'm going to need glasses. My vision in my 40s, I don't know what happened when I hit my 40s, but all hell broke loose, excuse me, health-wise. I think I'm going to have to get glasses and start wearing glasses. Don't make fun of me. I've already got the bald thing going on, Jared, but if I have to come on here with glasses so that I can read the comments, I'm just going to need you to be a little more mature than you typically are. Michael Hulker, I think I'm reading that correct from the Facebook page. He says Kenny Dillingham has said twice that he's not interested. He's staying in Arizona. I have not heard that at all. Jared, unless you've heard something that I haven't heard, I've listened to Kenny Dillingham speak multiple times now, been asked multiple times about the Michigan job. He said a lot about what he loves about Arizona State. He said a lot about what he likes about Michigan in terms of it being an elite program, an elite brand, one of the best jobs in the country, and on and on and on. I have yet to hear Kenny Dillingham say he's not interested in the position. Jared, am I missing something here, or is Michael a little bit off?
Nope. I think Kalen DeBoer is up here, right? He's came out and said, I'm going to be at Alabama next year. Dillingham has been very politically vague in all of his answers. You know what I mean? Like, he's leaving it on the table, right? Because we, like you said, we don't know if they've actually interviewed him or not. But he might not want to be, kicking himself out of the running for the job, and he's just been very vague. And you're not going to say bad things about your current employer. Good Lord, what if Michigan turns their head and says, hey, we're going to go over here, and you said, I'd love to go to Michigan. Now you got to go back to Arizona State and tell your players, I just kidding, I love you guys. We just saw you, bro. This is, you know what I mean? So I'm with Pam right there. I don't hate that situation. I just don't want them to rush it, because, gosh, we've been there, right? We get the wrong coach. It's better off not having one. Some of the things we've gone through in the Rich Rod and the Hoke eras, and and we can debate whether they had enough time, at another time. But I just don't want them to rush it. And it's an elite job. You don't have people come to Michigan, right? We shouldn't have to go to people, right? Like it or not. It's an elite job with elite assets and abilities and alumni base, and you got the wing helmet. I mean, come on, dude. Us, not the helmet.
Well, listen, there's a couple of things here that I want to touch on. First, I want to go to the Biff Poggi thing, because a lot of people are chiming in about that in terms of, Biff is obviously highly thought of in the program, and you can see that even in the people that don't think he should be the guy. But the prevailing belief, at least among fans, is that you can't go with Biff. I want to talk about that a little bit, but I also want to talk about, I've been pretty vocal about the fact that I think Michigan should go outside of the Harbaugh coaching tree. Like, anytime Jesse Minter's been brought up, even Jed Fish being brought up, I'm like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And I guess Biff Poggi would qualify as being part of that Harbaugh coaching tree. So maybe I'm going to be a little bit hypocritical here. But overall, when I say that, I've gotten a lot of pushback from people who are like, it's got to be like somebody within the Michigan circle, though. It's got to be somebody who fits that Michigan man mold. And their reasoning for that is, and there's a lot of PTSD about the Rich Rod era and sort of what that did to the football program. So I want to touch on that as well and sort of gauge your concern there. But let's start with the Biff Poggi thing, because what CJ said here, I think, is pretty common, what we're hearing from a lot of people. CJ from the Facebook page, frequent commenter here. He's been a part of the community for a long time. He says, I love Biff, not as the head coach. You definitely have to keep him in the building, though. And I think that pretty much sums up how a lot of people feel about him. Here's my case for why Biff Poggi may be the best option for the University of Michigan right now. When you look at the state of this program, and when you look at what has happened with the program, whether you're talking about Matt Weiss and a federal indictment and the FBI getting involved, whether you're talking about Connor Stallions and advanced scouting, whether you're talking about, NCAA investigations, or you're talking about head coaching suspensions, or you're talking about show cause orders, which, by the way, is another reason why, like, people were trying to figure out whether or not Jesse Minter was even going to be available and how long the show cause goes for. I'm like, that's why he shouldn't even be part of this conversation.
Yep.
You've got to try to figure out how long somebody's banned from college football for, to figure out if they're even in the mix. They shouldn't be in the mix, given where this program is at. When you get beyond just the stuff in the program and you start to talk about this internal investigation happening within the athletic department right now, you don't know if Ward Manuel is going to be part of the equation for the long term. Michigan is also working with an interim president right now, and there are rumors and speculation that the Board of Regents are at odds with one another. There's speculation that some of the regents are leaking information to certain individuals that are making things inherently more difficult, particularly for the football program. And so when I take all of that into consideration, if I'm a Kalen DeBoer and I'm down at Alabama and I'm getting ready for the college football playoff right now, I'm looking at Ann Arbor, I'm looking at Michigan, and I'm saying, even if it's a great opportunity there, is that really an environment that's worth risking, leaving behind what I have, where I've already sort of gained some ground here at Alabama, to go to that? I don't think so. I don't think you're leaving Alabama for Michigan, certainly not with Michigan in this condition. Right. If you're Jed Fish and maybe Michigan reaches out to you, I have a hard time believing that Jed Fish didn't place a call or a text or whatever to Jim Harbaugh to get his thoughts on that job. And I have a hard time believing that Jim Harbaugh would advise anybody to go take that head coaching job, just given what the end of his tenure looked like here. Kenny Dillingham is a bit of a different animal, young up-and-comer, somebody in his 30s. He's looking at Michigan as like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. So I think it's a little bit different for him. But when you think about Biff Poggi and you think about all the turmoil surrounding the program, this is a guy that's here not because he has to be here, not because he needs a paycheck. Biff Poggi, for anybody out there that's not aware, he's like a billionaire, right? Not a millionaire. I believe Biff Poggi isn't he a billionaire?
No, he's a 9-figure guy, though. I believe he's 100.
Can you look it up? Can you just Google? Can you ask what his net worth is, so we know? The bottom line is, Biff Poggi made a lot of his fortune in hedge funds and stuff like he is not here because he needs a paycheck. He is here because he loves the Michigan football program. His son played here. He loves the players that are here. He loves the culture that's here. And I think when you heard him speak earlier this week, or I think it was yesterday it came out, you could hear that in his voice. And so given the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty in this program right now, I think that Biff Poggi could be the best option for this football program, not for the long term, but maybe for a year, while you get the AD situation figured out, while you get the president situation figured out, while you take a look at the Board of Regents, and while this internal investigation is going on. Biff Poggi knows what's happening in Ann Arbor. He knows what's happening within the program. He's got buy-in from the players and from the parents. I just think that it wouldn't be the worst option in the world to float with Biff Poggi for a year while you purge all of the things that need to be purged out of the Michigan football program and out of the administrative side, so that you don't find yourself doing something like this every couple of years because you didn't really look at every single angle of what needs to be looked at. Jared, am I crazy in thinking that he could be a good option just given all the external circumstances surrounding the program?
Nope. So he took $25,000 and turned it into over $100 million hedge fund. So
there you go.
Yeah. So he's, like I said, 9-figure type dude.
I don't think so. That would explain the Rolls Royce he's driving around.
Yeah, he drives a white Rolls Royce. Yeah. So no, I don't think it's a terrible idea. And I'll tell you, there's a team down south, not too far from here, that went from tattoo scandals and losing their coach to Luke Fickell sitting there for a year. They went 6-6 because they didn't want to rush into anything while they were trying to convince Urban Meyer to come back to Ohio State. And then next year they got Urban Meyer, and they did pretty well after that, but they kept that continuity with Luke Fickell. Fickell stayed on the staff with Urban Meyer for a few more years before he went off, I believe, to Cincinnati at the time. Right. So there's precedent there. Ohio State didn't rush that. They went from, that was Tressel, right? So they went from Tressel, and kept Fickell there, kept the players, kept the recruiting, and they had a little bit of a down year, which I don't think Michigan would with Biff Poggi. And I think another thing the fans have talked about, and you and I have talked about, is we were concerned that Sharon was micromanaging some of the offensive side of the ball, right? I don't think you'd get that from Biff Poggi. I think you'd get a year of Chip Lindsey being Chip Lindsey and seeing what he can do. And Wink's good. Wink's got the talent, got the knowledge and the experience, so he'll be fine there. But look at Drake May, what he's doing right now in the NFL. I mean, I think the Patriots, they just lost to the Bills, but I think they're 11-3, first place. He's the number 2 guy for the MVP. That's Chip Lindsey that developed that kid. So I don't see why the fans are upset. I don't think Biff's going to be the guy with making the crazy calls. He's going to monitor and he's going to kind of mentor a little more than be the head coach, but it continues that continuity.
Right.
And it lets you get a guy, because God, if we get the wrong guy.
Well, that's a part of, and that's why I think if the guys who are at the top of your list, if it's DeBoer, if it's Dillingham, if option 1 and 2 are off the table, if you're Michigan and you start to go to like 3 or 4 or 5, I think at that point you wait. I think you wait, because the reason you're not getting your guys aren't because Michigan's not an attractive job. It's probably because those guys are looking at this and saying, I don't know if the situation is right. I don't know who my boss is going to be. I don't know how this thing is going to look. And we've talked about it before, even with Sharon Moore, that, Michigan is one of those jobs where it's an elite job. It's one of the most coveted jobs, but it's also a pressure cooker. When you take the job at the University of Michigan, you've got 3 years essentially to get it figured out, right? If you're the first time head coach, not first time in your coaching career, but if you arrive at Michigan, you've got 3 years to get it figured out. And I think if you don't have that happening by the end of year 3, you could be out. And so if there's a ton of uncertainty surrounding you and you don't know who your boss is going to be and you don't know what's coming down the line, I think it could scare off a lot of your top candidates. And that's why I think Biff Poggi could be a guy. And think about it. What is the job of the head coach in today's college football? A lot of it is relationship building, your fundraising. I mean, it's not bad having a guy who's worth $100 million out there fundraising for you, who obviously knows how to generate revenue. He obviously has the love of his players. And when you listen to him talk the other day, I think one of the biggest things that people love about Biff Poggi, I don't know that he has the ability to not be authentic, to not be who he is, to not say exactly what he feels. And that type of thing resonates with people. When somebody comes out and wins a big football game and says, look, I'm going to go home and smoke a cigar and eat a bunch of ice cream and hang out with my wife, that resonates with people, because that's how most of us want to spend our evenings. And when he gets in front of a camera after a real difficult situation with Sharon Moore and says, look, we feel betrayed, we feel hurt, that's not necessarily politically correct, right? Maybe you want to dance around that a little bit, but he took it on head on. He was very honest about it. And I just think if Michigan is serious about purging all the bullshit in the athletic department and within the football program, all the stuff that we've seen play out over the last 3 years, if they're serious about that, that's going to take a little bit of time to get that figured out. There's going to be a process with that. And if there's one guy that can steady the ship with the program while that process is taking place, I put the money on Biff Poggi as a guy who can do that. So that's why I would advocate for him. Do I think it's going to play out that way? No, because I think Michigan is they're intent on going out and naming their next head coach. And I think it's going to be one of the names that we've probably heard frequently. I don't think it's going to be Biff, but if it did play out that way, I certainly wouldn't be upset.
Yeah. And I think one of the comments over here is from YouTube was all this Biff talk is nonsense. Michigan needs to hire an elite coach. Well, what if there's not, Mr. Jones? Yeah. What if there's not one? What do you suggest we do? Just keep going down the line till you get a bad hire? I think that's a terrible thing, because now you're stuck with them. Like you said, 3 years. You got to give them those 3 years. I think, like we talked about when this thing first happened, you got to have player buy-in. Because, 3 weeks ago, before this thing all blew up, what were we talking about? We were talking about Sharon having a team in Underwood's junior year, which is 2 years from now, that should be a national title contender, because the class that came in this year and that Underwood class being so heavy on experience and talent as juniors, you know what I mean? So you got to be careful here, because if you hire the wrong guy and they bounce, you lose that. But if you can keep the right people in there, if you can get a Biff Poggi to kind of, hold the line, convince the players that the next guy coming in is good, but the players aren't dumb either. And neither are the parents. So they're going to see, all right, here's the 2 or 3 guys that Michigan should hire. And if those 3 guys say no, or just blow off Michigan, and Michigan goes to the 4th or 5th, they're going to know that. Everything's under a microscope now in social media era. So they're going to say too, oh, Michigan's settling, and that's who's going to coach my kid. Nah, we're out of here. Because you know what? Other universities have elite players. You know what? You can say all you want, but Lane Kiffin doesn't have a damn quarterback right now. right? And
Right.
Bryce Underwood, for what it's worth, was at one point interested in LSU, and Lane Kiffin seems like a pretty smooth operator, and he certainly went there with the intent of making them, very competitive, and he knows he's got NIL money. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line they got him a $50 million NIL bucket, and he can come right out, and there's no buyout on Bryce's contract or whatever it was with Michigan. So you got to be very careful before you get picked apart. This is a little bit different than it used to be. So I just think rushing to an elite quarter. There's no elite. Who's elite? Who's
That's
elite?
what I was going to say.
Who's
Like
elite? Who's elite right now? That's left.
when you say Michigan has to get an elite head coach,
who is it? Who do you think?
Show me who is the elite head coach that's available.
Not coming.
Not coming.
Not coming.
Kalen
DeBoer, I don't think he's coming.
I said it earlier. I don't think you leave what you have with Alabama for what's currently available to you in Michigan. I don't. That to me right now, if everything was perfect with the football program, then I view it as a lateral move at best from Alabama to Michigan. I view it as a lateral move. Right now, with the current circumstances, it is not a lateral move. It's a huge risk. You're gambling that maybe things are going to go better and it's going to improve and you'll have a better shot there than you will in the SEC with Bama. But it's not even that anymore. Like, you go to the Big Ten, you've got Ohio State, you've got Oregon, you've got USC, like you've got Indiana now. Like, there's no guaranteed path anywhere. And then when you factor in all the other circumstances within the program and the athletic department, I just don't see why a guy like Kalen DeBoer or any other quote unquote elite head coach around the country would leave their spot for what's available in Michigan. And so when you talk about Michigan's got to get somebody elite, I think you're talking about the possibility of pulling somebody out of retirement. And I just don't think that's going to be the case. Maybe you go get somebody out of the NFL potentially, but I put it this way. I don't think that there is a sure thing available in this cycle. Is that fair to say? Like, I don't see any of these names as like a sure thing.
With you. I'm 100% with you. And I think I keep seeing fans say, well, make somebody say no, make Signetti say no. Signetti will say no. Go ahead and waste your time.
Right.
Losing players is a big deal. Like, scared to lose players. Yeah, nobody wants to go back to mediocre. And here's the thing: elite coaches don't want to lose players either. No coach wants to come into a program and say, knowing that Bryce Underwood's going to leave and Savion Hyder's going to leave, and all. Like, if you don't get buy-in from these, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means.
Because we said that losing the players, right? That's a big deal. Give a damn. That's who plays the damn game. What do you mean?
Just so people know, if people are just listening on audio, the comment here is from the YouTube page. Is from Mr. Jones 144. Says, y'all are scared to lose players. Who gives a damn? This is Michigan. People like y'all are the reason Michigan has been mediocre for a decade. Let's hope the administration doesn't have this attitude. I don't even know what that means. Like, people like us are the reason why Michigan has been mediocre for a decade. They won a national championship in 2023. They won 3 consecutive Big Ten championships, went to the college football playoff in 3 consecutive years and won a natty. So I don't know what you're talking about being mediocre. It certainly has anything that you love or hate about the football program has zero to do with the 2 people sitting here or anybody who thinks like us. I think this is just more of like trying to be realistic about the situation. And I know that there is a large faction of this fan base that wants to sit back and do the same thing and say, hey, this is Michigan. This is Michigan. We can get whatever we want. We can do whatever we want. It's not like that anymore. Like, NIL has changed the game a little bit. It's evened things out. You can go and win at a high level elsewhere, so other jobs are more appealing than they were. Take Texas Tech, for instance. Texas Tech is one of those programs now where people are looking at that as a legitimate national championship contender, where 4 years ago you would have never thought that about that football program. So the equation has changed. But to also dismiss the things that have happened within the program, the last 4 coaches at the University of Michigan have gone fired, 10-year ban, fired, and ended up in jail. It's not necessarily a great track record for the recent head coaches that have been here. And when you look at the other things, I get that we love Michigan, but these are business decisions being made. These are people deciding, is that a place that's stable? Is that a place that has the type of support that I'm going to need to be successful long-term? And I think right now it's fair to question that. And I'm certain that if you are one of the top candidates in this search, Jared, there's zero question to me that those conversations are taking place. Yes, we know Michigan can recruit. Yes, we know that they've got NIL and facilities and all that shit. If I'm looking at that job, my biggest concern is who's going to be the AD? What's going on with the president situation? Are there any more investigations that are coming that I need to be aware of? And that is a shame. That's all self-inflicted. And that's why this coaching search is incredibly more difficult than it would have been otherwise. Because if not for all the bullshit, Mr. Jones, I'd be right on lockstep with you. I think Michigan could get whoever they want, wherever they want. Like I would think that way about this job. But right now, given the circumstances, I'm sorry, it's just not the case.
I mean, just mediocre for a decade is a ludicrous statement.
Well, that's not even.
That's not even legitimate. Like just strike that. But the other part is too is I'm tired of this. This is Michigan. Okay, that shit's over, bro. Like stop doing that, because you can say this is Michigan, and then you got Texas Tech out there paying millions of dollars for players, like you said. Like it doesn't matter. There is some legacy. There is some value to that. But that Matt Kirby's an asshole. But that I love it, Matt. But that is not, you can't lay on that anymore, right? And Harbaugh tried that for so long. And when he got that national championship, how did it happen? They used NIL to keep guys from going to the NFL. Like they didn't do it for the team. Like they were getting paid too. So I mean, just stop with this is Michigan bullshit. Like money talks. Stop being so. These guys ain't leaving.
Yeah.
It's you can throw as much money as you want at Cignetti. He ain't coming here. You can throw as much money as you want at Marcus Freeman. He ain't coming here. And I guess if you throw $20 million at him, which is ludicrous, ain't nobody getting over $10 million from Michigan their first year. It's just not happening, guys.
I don't think that
this we are Michigan thing is stopping.
Elite head coaches are not going to make
26 years.
You're not going to make a lateral move to Michigan right now with all the other circumstances. You're just not. So that's why I think Kenny Dillingham is such an appealing candidate, because he isn't a guy in a position at Arizona State where I would argue that right now his name is as hot as it's ever been, and there is a big juicy position out there just waiting for him at the University of Michigan, where it is among the Notre Dames, the Alabamas, the Georgias, like. And if you're a guy like that, that's got to be incredibly appealing. And that's why I think if Michigan has really zeroed in on him and views him as a top candidate and they want to offer him the job, I have a real hard time, even though mom's down the street and my kid's best friends with my sister's kid and I grew up here and all that other shit, that's great. It ain't the University of Michigan. So I guess in that respect, like, I am kind of in the same boat as Mr. Jones from the YouTube page. Like at that point, I will say, hey, this is Michigan. Like I get you love Arizona State, but it ain't this. You should come here and the money and the NIL and the resources and all that. But when you talk about Marcus Freeman and Kalen DeBoer and some of these other big time programs, Kirby Smart, something like that, you're never going to pull those guys to Michigan. I think in general, but especially given the circumstances right now. So it's not like a me thing. It's not a Jared thing. It's not like we're trying to undervalue what's the opportunity is at Michigan. It's more of just a realistic approach to what the current situation is here. And I think most people think Michigan's going to come out ahead in whatever head coach they end up going with, because another part of this is the realization that what we've had here in Ann Arbor for the last 2 years has been awful, not because Sharon Moore didn't necessarily know how to coach football, but because he was spending half of his time in that building trying to manage and navigate an affair. And I think that's incredibly disappointing. And so I guess if you're a Michigan fan, the good news is it doesn't matter. Jed Fish, Kenny Dillingham, whoever the hell they end up going with, as long as that person is locked in and focused on coaching football, Michigan's going to be better off for it. And so in that sense, I'm excited and I'm optimistic.
But I don't want to settle. This ain't last call at the bar, gentlemen. Some of you are obviously willing to settle on some of those
Some
things.
of these people are like, their vision's a little bit blurry.
Somebody. Michigan ain't the ugly girl. Michigan ain't the ugly girl, but you can wait. You know it's Friday night. You can come back Saturday. You don't have to throw the whole weekend away on the one you see on Friday. But I think that's what, all these people that are saying these things, put some names in the comment that who you think's elite. Put in who you want Michigan to hire, and then we can discuss that, I guess, right? Cignetti ain't going to happen. DeBoer, I don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, even this Chris Tyler from the Facebook page says, I can't believe Swinney hasn't been called at least. He's ready to get out of Clemson, no doubt. I don't care what his contract says. There's a couple of things there. I don't know whether or not he or his agent, I should say, has been contacted at this point. Well, I think that's a good example there. I don't even know if a guy like Dabo Swinney, who's been at Clemson for a long time now, had some success, things have kind of fallen off a little bit as of late. I don't even know if a guy like that makes this kind of a move. I just think He's experienced. He's been in the game for a long time. He's probably looking at that situation saying it could be good, assuming that it even gets to the point where he's discussing it and been offered something. It could be good, but there's just too much other shit going on there. To me, it feels a little bit radioactive around this program right now, which is why I think you've got to kind of be a little bit reasonable about who's going to do it. Now, if you're pulling somebody out of retirement, that's a bit of a different story because they're already sitting out there. They're already enjoying whatever wealth they've built up. They don't really have anything going on right now. So like coming out of retirement to coach Michigan, maybe, but I haven't heard anybody being named among that search that's like one of those guys. Like
what? So at 6:37, can do, will do, sucka, which I love that. YouTube. You see that one where he says, I'm sold on Biff? 6:37. He brings up a good point. If you keep Biff for now, you don't have to roll him all the way through next year, but there's NFL assistants that are going to come open once the teams start getting eliminated from the playoffs, things of that nature. So now you can look at some of these NFL assistants as well. So that gives you another pool to pull from. But I'm telling you right now, NFL assistants are locked in the season, right? Teams are slowly getting eliminated right now. But there's some big name guys out there. I think they were talking about Brady. Joe Brady, I don't think he's taking any calls right now. Buffalo is in a playoff hunt. He ain't taking a phone call because his head coach is telling him, answer that phone. And
his agent probably is. His agent would.
And that's what might be, but his agent's also not going to be, they're not going to be engaging right now. It's what I'm saying. In the NFL, you're at the pinnacle of football. You're not engaging with college right now. Now, when your team gets eliminated or, booted from you're not going to make the playoff, things can change a little bit. But I agree with what can do, will do, sucka is, I love it, is saying, calm down, fellas. It's not 2 a.m. on a Friday. Relax. There's other girls coming in. We're good. I
feel that same way, man. I feel like there's a rush to want to find a head coach because you feel like that's absolutely what you got to do. I have a feeling if you were to go talk to the guys in the locker room and if they knew that Biff Poggi was going to be the guy in that spot for the next year, I feel like you'd retain the vast majority of those guys, certainly the guys that you want to retain. I think it also gives you the best opportunity to keep some of the key members of the staff, which I was pretty strong on that the last time we got on live where I said, hey man, we got to get everybody out. I think I maybe had a little bit of a come to Jesus moment on that. I've revised my thinking a little bit on that, not completely, little bit on that. Here's what I want to do. I want to talk about the coaching staff, the guys that are there right now, and some of these guys that we think are absolutely must-haves that you've got to keep in Ann Arbor moving forward. And then I also want to get into the conversation. Maybe we'll talk a little bit bigger, the Ward Manual discussion. I put out a poll on Facebook just asking where people stand on this. I'm wondering, is the criticism directed at Ward Manuals fair? Or is it a little bit out of whack? Because I asked people, do you approve, disapprove of the job Ward Manual is doing? Dude, over 90% were like ready to send this guy to the moon. So we'll talk about the Ward Manual thing. And then I want to ask you about this upcoming Texas game, because in the midst of all this craziness, and my God, let me say this. I understand that people want to move on and they want to talk about a coaching hire. And like, I understand that we live in a world right now where most of what we consume is in like 30-second sound bites, and it's just everything comes at you quick and you just move on from one thing to the next. It's hard to overstate just how crazy and chaotic last week was for this football program. And if you were to take, maybe we're desensitized to it because as Michigan fans, it's just been a lot of bullshit for so long. But if what happened last week happened in Columbus to Ryan Day, same exact scenario, your mind would be blown. I mean, we were all shocked. We were all like, but it just seems like Michigan fans are like, okay, yeah, we get that happened last week. We're ready to move on. Like, that was crazy last week. That was an insane thing that happened. We can't just brush over that and like move on so quickly. Like, you got to fix some things that happened and some things that led to that. And so I just think it's worth reminding people that was and still is an insane thing. The images that came out of that, the sound bites and the reality of what happened. I'm amazed that people just are so ready to move on after something so crazy. That's Michigan, right? Like, whatever. Just move on. This is Michigan, damn it. But I also want to talk about Michigan does play a football game later this month against Texas. Right. I want to ask you about that and your expectations about that football game. So when we come back, There's going to be more conversation that we're gonna go over for sure on the second part of the show. But I do want to get a word in here from VFW National Home. Happy to have them as a sponsor. They're doing great work for veterans. We're going to run this commercial. We'll be back on the other side of it to continue the conversation.
Next story takes us to Eaton Rapids, Michigan.
Eaton Rapids is the site of the Veterans of Foreign Wars home. The home has been in existence since 1925 and is a fully equipped community.
When I was 10 years old, we had some unfortunate things happen in my family, and we ended up being homeless. My mother's friend told her about a place called the VFW National Home. It was the first time that I had real stability in my childhood.
Very few people outside of the state of Michigan understand that this is a place where veterans from all over the United States can go and get help that they need.
The military does a great job of creating soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen. But what they don't do is they don't create good veterans. That's the VFW National Home's job. That's what we do.
All right. Once again, thankful and grateful to VFW National Home for all the work that they do, making sure that veterans have all the resources they need. These guys and gals, they give so much of their lives to the country. It's nice to know that there's an organization out there that's committed to giving back and helping those folks get back on their feet. Jared, here's what I want to do. There was a piece of news that I kind of wanted to mention on the beginning of the show. I didn't really mention it, forgot to, and I guess that just speaks to how big of a deal it was. Earlier today, news broke that quarterback Jaden Davis does intend on entering the transfer portal. When I saw that news, when everybody saw the news, the reaction that I saw from folks was like, I'm surprised it took this long. Jared, when you saw that Jaden Davis was in the transfer portal, I would imagine you had the same response to it.
I wouldn't say not surprised that it took this long. I thought he would stay for a year behind Bryce because, I mean, you're behind a freshman that could – who knows? He could have imploded. There's a shot that you see the field when the guy in front of you is a true freshman, and there was really nobody else in the quarterback room, as a backup. So he was a true backup this year, I believe, and it doesn't hurt to stay around a program like Michigan for a year. But I'm happy for him. I mean, seems like a good kid. Handled all of the, everything, all the adversity, handled it well. And one thing that I'd say is a testament to his character and to his competitive spirit is, when Bryce Underwood signed, he didn't bail. There was, we had recruits that bailed, quarterback recruits that bailed when Underwood committed to Michigan, and Davis could have walked that day and didn't do it. So he stayed. He competed against the number one player in the country and some veterans as well. And so kudos to that kid for having heart and having, that competitive spirit. And I hope he lands somewhere. And I'm always going to be a Jaden Davis fan. I'm going to root for him. So
yeah, no doubt.
Unless we play
no reason not to root for him. By all accounts, a great dude. And you're right. Stuck in the program when it became apparent that, you look at the way that that things played out last year where it became very clear that they didn't really have any faith in him. Michigan was cycling through quarterbacks last year, and Jaden Davis was never given a legitimate shot to come in and prove himself, which I thought was unfortunate, man, because you had a lot of, Alex Orji struggled. Davis Warren struggled. Jack Tuttle struggled. To see Jaden Davis never get like a legitimate opportunity to just prove what he's capable of, I thought that was a little bit strange. Yeah. I also thought the mechanics, his throwing mechanics, and the fact that we didn't really see much development there. I don't know how much of that played into it, but overall, like I said, it sounds like he's a great dude. And I hope wherever he goes, he lands on his feet and he's able to compete and have a legitimate shot to be a quarterback at this level. Cause I think he can do it. There's a lot of question marks about where he's at in his development, but talent wise, I certainly think he has the ability to, to make a name for himself. So we'll see. Where do we want to go with this thing, man? Last week, I was pretty firm in where I stood on just the current people that are in the building at Schembechler Hall as it relates to the staff, not the players, but I think a lot of Michigan fans are. I think a lot of people are just exhausted by, it felt like as soon as we got through the advanced scouting / sign stealing thing, that thing just dragged out for so long. And it was always a topic, and the NCAA would release something, and then ESPN would come on and say something. And there was just a point where we were just like, can this just end? Like, I don't care what's coming. Can we just get to the end of it and then move on? And then you do ultimately get to the end of it this year. And then lo and behold, here we are once again sitting and talking about another catastrophe within the program. Michigan being once again in the spotlight, the topic of national conversation, and for all the wrong reasons. And so because of that, I was pretty strong in my stance that I feel like it's just time to clean house. It's time to start fresh. It's time to get everybody out, anybody associated with Harbaugh, anybody associated with Sharon Moore. I get that there's a lot of good people who are a part of that, but it felt like it was just time to flush it and completely cleanse it and get a whole new host of people in there. But I've also seen some of the reaction to not just what I said, but what some of the player parents have said and what some of the players themselves think, and what some of the fans are saying. And it seems to me that there are two names, at least in that building, that seems like no matter what happens with this Michigan coaching search, there are two individuals in that building that you absolutely must retain. And Jared, I'm curious, when you look at this staff, are there, how many guys, I guess, are a part of this staff? Like, when you look at what's assembled there currently, how many of these folks can you name them? And you look at them and you say, those guys got to stay. No matter what happens, you got to keep those guys. How many of those guys are there for you?
Yeah, I think you got to keep Tony Alford. He's done nothing but put together one of the most impressive running back rooms, and we're still not sure if Haynes is coming back. So there's that. I think you got to keep Biff. I mean, he's just the continuity, is the glue piece. He's just a good mentor, especially if you hire a young 35-year-old coach from Arizona State who's not been at this level. Having Biff there doesn't hurt anything. I think Wink, he's proven that he can do his job. He can win elite games. He can get the defense to do what they need to do. So yeah, those are the three for me that you have to keep. I don't yet. Poggi and Alford, Kirby. I agree.
Who's the third? I missed the third. I got Poggi and Alford. Who's the third?
For me, I think Wink. I think you want to keep Wink. I don't think you want to come in and dump Wink, right? I think he's just that continuity. And again, especially if we get a young coach. I mean, Wink's been around football longer than, the Arizona State coach has been alive. So I don't hate that. Esposito's been a great recruiter, on the defensive line. So that's not a bad one. But there are some guys that I think can roll too. I think I don't like the Combs thing. I really don't like that hire.
How about if you're Jerry Coombs and you just get hired? Your first week on the job is last week.
Yeah, you're out. You're
like, you know what? I thought I'd give this a shot. I can't do it here.
Yeah, no, I'm still questioning Ron Bellamy. I want to see what he does in the transfer portal. I think he kind of knows that he's in a hot seat as the coach there. Other than that, Chip Lindsey, I mean, he's had 1 year.
Yeah.
And again, we don't know the facts on Lindsey. I'm really convinced, based on what you said after the Ohio State game, that the players were like, this isn't the game plan that we practice. I'm really convinced that Sharon took over, the game plan and after that first run. And again, not spreading rumors here or whatever, but he clearly had a lot going on, in his personal life and whatever else the hell he was doing, that maybe he wasn't as involved as he should have been. I don't know. So yeah, I don't think you chuck Chip Lindsey to the Wolves either yet. I just.
Well, and I think a lot of that depends on who the next head coach is going to be. I mean, typically when the head coach comes in, like if you've got an OC that you feel comfortable with and have had some success, a lot of guys try to bring people from their staff with them. And you heard Dillingham talk about that. Like a lot of Arizona State fans were reading into that when he was saying, like, look, it's about the group and it's about taking care of my guys. Well, yeah, part of taking care of your guys means getting a pay raise and staying at Arizona State. The other part of taking care of your guys is making sure they're part of the deal when you make the move to Ann Arbor. Yeah. So that's a big part of it. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's two guys. I think it's Tony Alford and I think it's Biff Poggi. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to like discredit any of the other guys in the building, but I just think that those two guys have the most buy-in, the most influence. And we talked about Tony Alford last week. And even when you singled him out as an example, when you're like, even Tony Alford's got to go. And I was like, yes, they all got to go. Singling anybody out. The more I thought about that, the more I thought, like, I don't know, man. He got with the program last year, right? I mean, it's not like Was this year his first year with the program?
No.
2024 was his first year with the program, right?
Yep.
So, is he, how intertwined in all the BS is he? I don't know. It seems like he's a phenomenal recruiter. The Michigan running backs have done great. And he doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to get caught up in some BS. And so, when you listen to players and when you listen to families, it seems like Tony Alford is somebody who's highly thought of, and obviously Biff Poggi is in that boat. But to me, Jared, I can't really put my finger on anybody else and say that's a guy you absolutely have to keep. I know that you said Wink Martindale. Like, I don't think that that's a bad idea, but I don't look at him as somebody that absolutely has to remain in the program. I think there's two guys that if you want to retain as many people as you possibly can, I think the two guys you absolutely have to keep in the building. If you are a Kenny Dillingham or if you are a DeBoer, or whoever the hell it could be, if you're looking at what your staff is going to look like, if you want to retain a lot of the guys on the roster, I think those are the two guys you got to make sure that you can keep your hands on. And then the rest of them might be nice to have. We'd like to keep it, but you don't absolutely have to have it.
I'll tell you right now, and I've never been a head coach in college football. I never will be, but I am a big recruiting guy. If I come in there, I'm looking at two guys that are on this signing class, Savion Hyder, Carter Meadows. And I'm going to ask who was their main recruiter. And if that main recruiter was Esposito for Meadows and it was, Alford for Hyder, they're staying. Because those two are generational type talents. I mean, have you seen Carter Meadows play basketball now? The kid is just an athlete. He's a stud. He's a pure athlete. And once he gets to Michigan and gets in that weight room and gets the proper conditioning and eating the right food, and I'm excited about this kid. And that's the two guys that I'm like, we can't miss on them. So I'll keep those two, whoever the hell recruited them, and I think it was Esposito was Meadows' guy. And obviously Alford was with Hyder. So that's kind of how I look at it. And then like everybody else said, yeah, you're going to want to bring your own people in. Biff is just a guy that holds the glue. He's just a dude, right?
He's a glue guy.
Yeah, he's a glue guy. He don't care. He doesn't need money. He's there to, to keep everybody together and sell that new coach to the players and to the families, right? That's the other piece people don't seem to realize is families have a heavy influence in this. And I think you and I've talked about it. I think we got some good stuff with Bryce in terms of he's a family kid, right? He loves his family. You watch this 5-star show on Paramount Plus. Half the time he's at his parents' house getting his hair done and hanging out with his parents and playing video games with his parents and talks about his sister. Like, I think we really have to mess it up for Bryce to leave, fortunately. And I think keeping him keeps a core group of people, right? They see the Underwood leave, then it could be a real mess. But
and even these little things, man, like I'm just now thinking about that as you're saying it. Like Sharon Moore came out, a little over a week ago and said it was like a top priority. One of the priorities was to bring a quarterbacks coach in, somebody that could work directly with Bryce Underwood. Like, I don't know where Michigan is at in that process right now. I'm guessing they haven't brought anybody in because you can't really hire anybody at this point because you don't really know what's going to happen. But like, even those are like the little things. Like, you say you're going to do this, you're going to be able to bring a guy in, and then you go out and get shit canned and go to jail. And it's like those resources, those things that those players need. And I think Biff Poggi put it as perfect as you could put it. There's a sense of betrayal there. Like, I think even as fans, people that like advocated for Sharon and said, you got to give him more time. Like, he's doing this well. You got to believe in him. He's doing right by the players. He's great on the recruiting trail. Guys like us. I mean, dude, I hung out with my family, my kids and my wife after the Michigan game out in Chicago at Wrigley. My kids wanted to meet Sharon Moore and we hung out outside of the tunnel. We went, I never do that. I'm a photographer. Like, I see these guys all the time. Like, I don't have that, but my kids wanted that experience. Took a picture with Sharon and shook his hand and all this other shit. And it's like, again, it just has shockwaves when you screw up in that position that massively. And the quarterback coach, I think, is another example of it. It's just, there's all these little things that should be getting done within the program, transfer portal targets, all this stuff. And it's just not getting done because, once again, Michigan's sitting and waiting and trying to figure out what's it going to look like a week from now.
Yeah, and then you talk about, the old saying, hindsight's 20/20. It's kind of like a fog being lifted a little bit. You're looking back, like, you think now, why did you wait till the end of the season to say, you know what we should do to make Bryce better? Get him a quarterback coach. we have our winged helmet fans, who are the best and the most intelligent and smartest fans in all of college football, have been saying this all year. We have talked about it at times in the year, like, who's really developing Bryce Underwood? You go the whole year, and then you say, you know what? In hindsight, we probably should have got him an expert. What in the hell? There's not a football team that doesn't have a quarterback coach in the NFL, right? We've talked about this before, watching, these NFL shows with Josh Allen and stuff. They all have quarterback coaches. JJ McCarthy had a quarterback coach in high school. Why do you bring in a talent like that and not bring somebody in to specifically hone that skill? Again, hindsight, like, was he just not running this program? Was he just like on autopilot and then game day would be like, nope, that's not what I want to do. I want to run the ball every play. And you know what I mean? I wonder how bad it really was. And you've heard, you hear things coming out that the players, he was treating them like shit and he was doing all these other, and we don't know, but the amount of pressure this guy was probably under, on top of being the Michigan football coach, personal and professional, there was no, break for him. And I don't think that he did the best that he could have done, unfortunately. And maybe the players suffered. Program certainly did. Look at us now.
I mean, the fact that they went 9-3 under the circumstances and everything we know now, like, yeah, you can't help but wonder what could have been. Like, last season kind of feels like a wasted season outside of all the development the young guys got. But yeah, I mean, had Sharon Moore been fully locked into the program, fully committed to the program, fully committed to doing his job, fully committed to making sure the guys had the resources they needed, how different would it have looked last year? I guess, we're obviously never going to know. But yeah, man, it just, when you think about it, it just impacted so much. And I mean, that's a great point. Like, why did we get to the end of the season where it was like, yeah, we want to bring in another quarterbacks coach? Why? Like, was this not high profile enough for you to understand we have got to surround this kid with as many teachers as we possibly can for his development, because it's critical that he succeeds? I don't know how we figured that out at the very end of the season after 12 games, but it is what it is. And if you're in here, if you're an Ohio State fan and you're trying to rile people up like Michigan fans, I would just, I'm not going to kick him out, because, it's views, it's analytics, and it helps us get paid in here. So if you want to go back and forth with those folks, you absolutely can. But by no means do you have to give them attention, because, if they were getting attention elsewhere, they wouldn't be here seeking it out. I'll just put it that way. The Texas game, Jared, I do want to talk about that, because I thought about this in a way that I didn't think about it before after Sharon Moore was out, because we were so caught up in what happened with Sharon and kind of like, all the shock and awe related to that. But I think that where I was mentally about this Texas game and all the pressure that I felt like was there on the program, I guess I've realized now that most of that was due to the fact that I felt like it was a must-win game for Sharon Moore. I didn't really think it was directed at the players or the team. To me, this was a Sharon Moore thing. And once I thought more about him being out of the picture for this game, I went from feeling it was pressure-packed to like being kind of excited about this game in a way that I wasn't before. And here's why. All year we talked about, and there was discussion and debate about how much influence does Sharon Moore have on this offense? Why does it look the way it looks? Is this a Chip Lindsey thing? Is this a Sharon Moore thing? Is he interjecting and intervening at times where maybe Chip Lindsey wants to do something else? And there were even people that pointed at, like, well, look at Central Michigan and Nebraska. Like, if you want to know what it looks like without Sharon Moore, look at those two games. That's not true. Sharon Moore wasn't on the sideline, but he was still the head coach of this team, and his fingerprints were all over that. Not to mention, it was Central Michigan and Nebraska, not exactly world beaters that Michigan was competing with. Michigan beat Nebraska on the road by, 3 points? Yeah, it was a blowout of Central Michigan, but Michigan's second unit would have blown out Central Michigan. So all I'm saying is this Texas game is going to be the first time all season long, Jared, that we're going to get to see what this team looks like completely absent of Sharon Moore's influence. And I got to be honest, I'm pretty damn excited about what that could potentially look like. How do you feel about that?
No, I'm with you. I'm excited. And I hope that, some guys aren't going to play getting ready to the NFL. Sure. And I understand it's not the college football playoff. This is the new norm, right? But I hope some of those young leaders step up. I hope you see Bryce take charge of
just time out. I got to do this real quick. Look, man, an Ohio State fan, I get it. You want to come in here and you want to ruffle feathers and you want to get everybody excited. I get it. I was going to let you continue to do it. What I cannot do is allow you to come in here with some bald slander, right? I can take it from friendly fire, but we can't have any bald slander in here. Unfortunately, my guy, you got to go. Wish you the best of luck in finding a new show. Jared, I'm sorry. Continue. You will not have Slender in the comments.
Yeah, it's funny when our people say it, right? Like we can make fun of each other, but you can't. Yeah. We got your back there, Daryl. You don't need to.
We got your back, Daryl. Hey, kindred spirits here. Look at I got you. I got you. I will let a lot of things slide, but I will not let bald slander slide in the comments.
Just to join the team.
Sorry about that, Jared.
No, you're good, brother.
You're excited for Texas.
No, so I think that I'm excited, just like you. I want to see it, and I hope that we do see something. And at the same time as hoping, it's almost like you don't want to see too much, because then you start thinking, what if, right? Like, what if we had a coach that was fully engaged? What was this team really just unprepared? You know, was he going against what the coordinators? I mean, what if Chip Lindsey was practicing all week before these big games that they got their ass handed to him, and had a whole game plan as offensive coordinator? And then when he goes to game day, Sharon was stepping in and saying, all right, now I'm going to take over and go back to smash and all this other nonsense, which, again, terrible word for him in hindsight. But, you know, what if that's the case? Then you just think the what ifs of the season. And I don't think that it fully was. I think, you know, they were a young team and all those things. But I'm excited to see him play. I want to see Arch, right? It's Arch and Bryce, and that's cool. Arch said he's coming back next year, by the way, too. So, you know, he's got something to play for. And I don't know yet. I don't know who's playing and who's not playing for either team. So too early for us to make any kind of decisions on even thoughts on who's going to win that game. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see him play football, right? That's the other part. I just want to play football.
Sure.
You know, for 3 hours, we can just play football. And I bet those kids, you know what they want to do? They want to play football. They just want to play football.
I think you're going to see a team that's incredibly loose and incredibly excited to just get out and play a football game. And I think that that's going to be exciting to see. And I think that one of the other benefits of, you know, watching a young roster, you know, sort of go through the process of developing throughout the season is that, you know, you're going to see a lot of those same guys playing in the bowl game as well. So a lot of the guys that you saw during the season, you're going to see in the bowl game as well. Now we'll see about guys like Jay Sean Barham, Derek Moore, and, you know, some of these other guys that are going to declare. You know, it seems kind of unlikely that you'll see that, but I think for the most part, you're going to get a pretty strong roster from Michigan, and certainly guys that you're really intrigued to see their development continue into next year. I think you're going to get a good look at. But yeah, man, it's interesting because all year long, there was this belief that Sharon Moore was handicapping the offense. And to be honest, Chip Lindsey took a lot of heat for it as well, because he came in, you know, we talked about explosiveness and what he did with Drake May and all this other stuff. And it just didn't look like any of that was materializing in Ann Arbor, and everybody was trying to figure out why. So it doesn't mean that I'm going into this Texas game expecting to see like an all-out air raid type offense and Bryce Underwood's going to throw it for 400 or 500 yards. I don't think that's going to be the case, but there are nuances. There are small subtleties and differences in the way that the game is going to be run. And I just think the most intriguing aspect about it is, like I said, yes, he wasn't there for Central Michigan and he wasn't there for Nebraska because he was serving a suspension, which, again, like, dude, he missed 2 games this year because serving a suspension. And now here we are doing this at the end of the year. But in any event, he wasn't there for Central Michigan. He wasn't there for Nebraska, but his fingerprints were still on the game plan. His influence was still there.
Yeah.
If there's something that Chip Lindsey wants to do with this offense, if there's something that Biff Poggi has been wanting to see, but just felt like it's not really Sharon Moore's thing. Like he's the general here. He's the one guiding it. Like, we're going to work within this framework. If they want to operate completely outside of that framework, this football game against Texas is the first time where they're going to have the opportunity to do it. And so in that sense, I'm excited to see what it looks like. Does it look the same? Are there some differences that we see? Is it completely different? I don't know. I don't really know what to expect until we get into it. And that's why I think there's a lot of intrigue in this game. But in terms of the pressure facing this team, I feel like with Sharon Moore out of the picture, all that pressure is gone now. I mean, they could go out and get blown out by Texas. I don't want that to happen, but people would just sit back and say, well, you know, it's been a tumultuous, you know, couple of weeks for that team. Like, it makes sense, whatever, regroup, come back strong next year. To me, Michigan has absolutely nothing to lose. I think that's why they're going to be incredibly dangerous in this game. And I'm excited to see them go out and compete. Jared, I think you make a great point. I think this is a team that's going to be hungry to get back on the field, given the way the last couple of weeks looked. And it's interesting to see what that's going to look like. Is there anything else here? I mean, we are.
Well, yep. Tyrone, real quick. Tyrone Gardner took the words right out of my mouth at 7:05 Facebook. He said Chip is coaching for his job. And that's what I was going to add on to what you're saying.
Okay,
it's an opportunity for these guys to audition for the next head coach, right? Like this, Chip Lindsey can come out and say, here's what I was trying to do all damn year. Right? If that was the case, that he wasn't getting to execute his game plan, this is his chance. And so I agree with Tyrone. I literally was going to say just that. So kudos to you, Tyrone. We're on the same page. And if you're on the same page as Dr. J, you're good. You know, everybody
There you
knows
go.
that.
I mean, even look at back what Biff Poggi said about Bryce Underwood, and like we saw Bryce Underwood run the ball a little bit, and Biff Poggi said we're never going to take the air out of the ball for Bryce again. We're never gonna limit him again. Well, there were times where it looked like he was incredibly limited. Ohio State was one of those. He had 5 passing attempts in the first half against the Buckeyes. There weren't many designed runs, at least in that game plan for him. And Jared, you brought this up earlier in the show. The reporting is as the players were walking off the field after Ohio State, there was a player that was heard saying like something to the effect of, it's nice that we practiced a game plan all week just to get into the game and not even use it. And so I just think that
ludicrous. That's so hard to believe. Every time you say it, I'm like, there's no way that's real. And I have to leave the show and Google it and be like, okay, we actually did that.
Yeah,
it's with that kid at the quarterback, like
with your franchise QB. And I get he's a true freshman.
Marshall's on fire. Andrew Marsh had been on fire for weeks. We didn't even target him.
So I don't know what that game plan was. And I think that, you have a couple of good runs out of the gate and you're like, fuck it, let's just pound it. Let's just go back to old school. And Michigan went into the shell. They went into the tank. The game plan, veered off considerably. And all of a sudden, now you're in a situation where you can't run the ball, you can't throw the ball, and the Buckeyes are pulling away. And so unfortunately, that's the way it went. I think the players were frustrated. I think some guys on the staff were frustrated. And I know the fan base was frustrated. So we'll see, man. We'll see what it looks like. But yeah, Tyrone, I think that, Chip Lindsey is certainly trying to make his case for whoever the next guy is that might come in. And based on what we heard Biff Poggi say before about how they're going to utilize Bryce Underwood and not limiting him, not taking the air out of the ball, there might be something to the effect or something to this idea that, hey, man, Sharon Moore, for whatever reason, just wanted to keep the bubble wrap on for a little bit longer than it needed to be. I think that we're going to get to see whether or not that's true against Texas coming up. The other part of this conversation, and it might be worth saving it for another time, the Ward Manual discussion, just because there's a lot of layers to this, man. There's
gonna be a long one.
Yeah, I think that Ward Manual for a long time is a guy who's taken a lot of heat well before this Sharon Moore thing popped off. Like there have been people that have been calling for Ward Manual's job for a long time. And I understand, you look at KBA with the women's basketball team, you look at Dusty May with the men's basketball team, you look at what's happening with the hockey team. Like there is a lot that's happening around Michigan athletics that you can feel good about. But there are also things that have happened with the baseball team, with the hockey team, repeated things that have happened within the football program where it's like, does the good offset the bad? Does the good outweigh the bad? And there are just like the bad things that have happened within the program aren't like minor, small, bad things. Like when the FBI is involved and there's a federal indictment, that's a big problem. When you have multiple NCAA investigations where guys are either getting fired, suspended, show cause, a $30 million penalty for the university, like that's a pretty big deal. When you have a guy who has apparently carried on an affair within the program for over a year, who ends up lying to you, getting fired, and then going out and getting arrested and becomes a national embarrassment once again for your football program. Yeah, I don't know if you're Ward Manual, how you prevent all those things, but the reality is all those things happened under your watch. And so maybe that'll be part of what we talk about when we hop on the next show is like, is it fair that people want to move on? And I think a big part of that's going to be what this internal investigation uncovers. Because I'll say this about this internal investigation that's looking at the entire athletic department. Part of that is looking at who knew what, who reported what, how did Ward Manual handle these things? How did they handle it all internally? And there's no guarantee that Ward Manual is going to survive this internal investigation. And so there is a lot up in the air. You and I don't deal in rumors on this show. I don't deal with them on my podcast. I really don't. I'm sorry, on the Facebook page or the social media platform. I don't really do anything with rumors, right? We talk about like maybe coaches that are being considered for things, but I don't deal in the rumor game. So I'm not going to get into specifics. I'll just say that some of the smoke that we heard about the Sharon Moore affair thing and some of the things that were coming, we knew about that for a while through rumors, which is why that we never talked about it. Cause I never heard that from like a legitimate verified source. Right. There are more rumors that are popping up from a lot of the same folks who were pushing this Sharon Moore narrative, saying that this was coming, that there are some other things that have popped up over the last handful of days that sound equally as disturbing, that could be an issue for Michigan, that I think part of this investigation is going to be working on and trying to uncover. And so I guess I'll just leave it at this until we get on the next show. I don't know that what's happened with the Sharon Moore thing, I don't know that we've heard the last of that or seen the last like body blows for the program as it pertains to that and what went down regarding that situation. So we'll have to figure that out. And again, Michigan is trying to deal with all of that while you're trying to convince some head coach around the country that this is the best place for you to come be the head football coach of the program. So yeah, Tyrone Gardner says it's like General Hospital. It really isn't. No, it's like Melrose Place here in Ann Arbor. It's Ann Arbor Place, right? It is just an ongoing drama that these people desperately need to get to the bottom of and fix, as we are now at an hour and 10 minutes. Jared, I think we pretty much covered everything at this point. I'm not sure that there's anything else we need to dive into. But look, are we going to be back on Thursday? Or are you out? I think we're good Thursday, right?
I mean, Thursday. Yeah, I'm in.
All right. So Thursday, here's what we're going to do. And I know that I say this all the time, and then we log on to the live and we get talking and then we get very limited questions. Here is my promise. If you show up to this show on Thursday, it is going to be a fan-led show as it's always supposed to be, but 100% of this show is going to be dictated by you. I'm not coming with any topic. I'm not going to start talking about anything Michigan football related. Get in here early, get your comments in, and we will just start the beginning of the show, and it'll go whatever direction you want it to go. So yes, Darren, yes, Matt, it is a fan-led Thursday. Come back here on Thursday.
Darren's rolling his eyes. He doesn't believe us.
Yeah, well, listen.
Unbelievable, Darren.
I'm going to prove myself to you on Thursday. Fan-led show on Thursday. You guys will guide the show. I'm not going to say anything. And if you don't come here with topics,
we'll just sit here silent.
I'm just going to sit here and stare at the camera until somebody asks something. Ask about football. Ask about my personal life. Ask about my hygiene routine. Whatever it is you want to go through, I'm happy to do it on Fan-led Thursday. A lot of shampoo on this body, believe it or not. A lot of hair, just not where I want it. We'll be back on Thursday to talk all about that. I appreciate everybody for hopping in the comments here. Until then, we'll see you in a couple of days. Take care.